Hello everyone. As you might have known, I do a little programming in my spare time, and if you didn't, well, you might be new to me. I don't do programming videos ever, really. I don't do videos at all, and every time I do, it's typically just something random that I decided I thought was funny or good. But besides that, I do programming in my free time, and I like to, I don't know, just make a bunch of different software things and learn many different languages. For example, I made BlockEOS, which was a minor hit, but expect that from a small creator like me. It means nothing. It was created in Godot 3.5.2, and it was pretty good. I liked it, and I loved working on it too, but I wanted to update it to Godot 4, and when I decided to try and see if I could make it go over, firstly, the scripting errors were a big issue, and secondly, the window system would not work. Now, it was because they removed what they call a window dialog node, and that was annoying because that node is how the entire window system worked, and then I added onto it. So, today, I'm ready to show off what I've been working hard on, my custom window system. It's pretty self-explanatory what I did here. I made my own windowing system in Godot 4. And let me show it off. This is a custom window. This is the title, this is the icon, these are the 3 buttons, and of course a debug label for debugging stuff. You can move the window around, you can maximize, you can minimize, though because it's not in the context, it's just going to go back here, and you can close it. Now, what's interesting is you can snap the windows, just like you did in the other one, left, right, but with this window system, oh, it's so more advanced. You can snap it on the top left, top right, bottom right, and that means if you have, say, 3 different windows open, I snap this one to the left, snap this one to the top right, and snap this one to the bottom left, I can have a window that looks, or windows that look like this. Now what's cool is they scale with the window, so if I decided to change the size of this, which I can't right now, it would scale with the window, and they all work pretty well. Now, all of those things, the moving, the snapping, maximize, minimize, all that stuff was fairly easy. It was just kind of copy and paste from the last one, but make it look nicer. But the hardest part for this for me was getting the resize working. This, self-explanatory, it's pretty easy. You can resize by adding or subtracting with the mouse position from its original one. Same here, and then same here. Where I struggled was left and up or top. And so that caused a bunch of confusion. But I got it working, and it works flawlessly with everything else. You can resize in any direction you want, and it will work perfectly fine. Now, the reason I was so hard to do is because the math involved was insanity to my brain, but I spent a couple days on it and got it working. So now, I have this really cool windowing system. And also, just because, Fling is back, and it's better than ever. It's super smooth. I personally really like this new Fling system, and everything smoothly flows together, though there may be bugs every now and then, which is completely fine. Now I want to show you some of the behind the scenes of the window and its math, and eventually I'll post this code on my GitHub profile, so you can go to github.com/plugahedman or go into the description and click on that link. You can check out my other projects that I posted on there. I find it interesting. But let me show you some behind the scenes of what the script is, the scripting behind it is, and maybe even the node tree. So pulling up the script editor here, you'll see there's a bunch of states for it. And let me open, not the online docs. Give me a second. This is taking longer than expected. Well, I find that really odd. I can't seem to get the documentation to pop up like I want it to, but it's fine, I guess. So, this is the app window, and it's code, really. There is a minor bug that exists within the window, and it's if you click on another window and under another one, it still shows an effect, but it's nothing like big. But besides that, there's a whole bunch of properties that comes with the app window. These are the nodes that are on the window, and then this is for something else you'll see in the future. But these are the nodes that go on the window, and it's how I access them. I like onReadies. It makes it much easier than doing it by the $ symbol, and plus I can add the types, which again makes it so much easier. I type everything in here, by the way, so it's really well documented. Window effects, these are also nodes. They're just the other effects that go on the window. Now, window movement. So, I'll explain this. And then there's one from the left, so it's from the leftmost position. Those are mainly used when moving the window. Mouse position is for determining the global mouse position. Able to move window is self-explanatory, and mouse speed is how fast the mouse is moving. Process info. Now this is for future stuff, again, different project stuff, but it has process IDs, it'll have a process name and subname. There's different settings, so for example, you can have the close button enabled, you can have the maximization button toggled, and the minimize one as well. You can also make it one instance, mainly good for alert dialogues or system applications. And minimum size, it's just the default minimum size generally, but you can also set it for whatever custom minimum size you want. Then there's window states. Resizable, if you want it to be resizable. Always on top. Fling, if it's enabled or not. If it's snappable. And then this is also a state. It will no longer activate fling if it's enabled, but basically it removes animations from the window to help for accessibility reasons. These are all of the different states that get changed throughout, so you generally don't want to mess with these. Anything with an underscore is private, so keep that in mind when you're looking at this. Window constants, like the open size, it'll always open to this size no matter what. I may make that so you can change it. Snap distance, how many pixels from the edge of the screen or window. Do you want to make it so it snaps? It's 10 pixels by default. And then enumerations for the window actions and directions, which fairly simple. I use this direction one a lot. So when you first open the window, what it does is, if you don't have the debug feature on your release project, it'll get rid of the debug label. And it'll also try and set desktop, which again is for different project. You can probably infer, to be honest. It'll set the resize bar colors to 0 by default, so that you can, you don't have to see it whenever you first load it up. And it's mainly debugging what the bars are for, but most people won't need them, so that's why they get disabled by default. Now, if you're single instance, it goes through this check where it goes to a global script and tries to see if a process exists under its name. And as long as these names are the same, it will be single instance. Otherwise, if it's not the same, it'll check if the sub-process exists and kill it. so it'll automatically get rid of the window before any other setup further happens. Then it sets the random process ID and tries to register it. If it can, awesome, it's registered. You will name it the process ID for different reasons, and then it'll continue through setup. Otherwise, it fails and it closes the window, mainly so that there isn't pigs of the same ID. Now, I could make it so it continually loops through and tries to do it, but I don't know about that yet. I'll have to see in the future. This is for if the window size changes, it'll do stuff. And now, we're preparing for the opening animation. So it sets the size to a 32 by 32 pixel square, and if the desktop exists, it'll open from the bottom left, so about here, it'll open to the center. If not, it just starts from the center bottom and opens upwards. It also sets the modulate to 0, so it's completely invisible. Now if you have animate actions enabled, then it will tween the animation starting from the bottom, make it expand it, it'll make it bigger to the default size, and it'll also set the modulate so it'll color open. And if you don't have it, then it just sets everything to what it needs to be immediately, and then sets the minimum size. If fling is enabled, then, or fling is not enabled, then you set the setting to the global one. And if snappable is not enabled, you set it to the global setting as well. And then set always on top if it is on top, otherwise it'll just get ignored. So that is the opening. That's how a window gets created. So if I rerun it, you'll notice when I press this, desktop doesn't exist in this case, and all the defaults are set, so it opens from the bottom and animates open. And everything works. Now, here's the fun part. Process. I try to make it so that nothing runs constantly if it doesn't need to. So not a bunch of if statements are there, and generally everything is kept to a minimum for running every frame to help improve performance. So you'll notice it's not that many lines. It just calculates the mouse position difference on the left from the center, and then if it's maximized and not animating, you set the position to 0, and that's for maximization, obviously. So it stays in the top left and will stay maximized. And besides that, runs every frame, barely anything there. Now GUI input is where mainly all the inputs go. It'll handle fling, it'll handle snap, and it'll handle resizing. It'll also handle the debug label if it's there. And this is where it does a bunch of the movement. Right here I think is where the movement is, and it also raise to the top if it needs to. Input, it's mainly just so that the visible effect can be disabled whenever outside of the window. Handle debug label, handles debug stuff. Handle fling, handles the fling stuff. Handle snap, handles snapping, which was really interesting to work on. And then handle resizing. This is the one that I got most confused on, but ended up figuring out. I'm going to go through it. It's about 100 lines long, so bear with me here. If it's resizable, then you can go ahead. If it's not animating, and you're not maximized and not snaps, then you can handle resizing stuff. Fairly simple. Otherwise, it'll cancel out. Now, if the event is a mouse button, so you click it, it will set resizing to true. As long as it's in state 0. Or no, not equal to 0, then it'll do that. Otherwise, it'll set resizing to false. So this is just, if you're clicking down on the window, it'll set the resize direction to whatever it needs to be. This one, otherwise, it'll not do anything. Now, in motion, depending on where you're moving it, it sets the sizing. So I told you right and bottom were the easiest to do. And no doubt, they were. My issues were left and top. So my issues with left and top were I did not know how to calculate the positions. Turns out it was much simpler than I thought. Once you figure out left, you figure out top. So it's just kind of switch the value to Y on here. So I'm just gonna go over left. So now, if the size difference is greater than 0, meaning it's calculating a size difference between when you first started trying to resize and what it is now. If the resize difference is greater than 0, then set the position equal to the mouse position, because you're doing it from the left, so you want it to follow the mouse. Otherwise, set it to the mouse position plus the size difference, which keeps it locked in place. And then set the size equal to its previous size plus the position difference, which means the size will be equal to, say, starting from here, where the caret is, the line cursor blinker, and I move it over here. That difference is however many pixels on the screen, so it calculates that, and it changes that to the size. Fairly simple. Took me forever to get them. And that's resizing. Handle resize direction just sees if it's within a certain bounds, and it'll handle the resize direction. If it's inside bounds, this is for any node on the window. You can check if it's inside of it, and if it is, it'll return a Boolean value. Reset window size, pretty straightforward. It resets the window size back to its previous size. Snap position, similar to resize direction, it returns an integer of what direction you're snapping. Snap window snaps it by animating it. Inside window checks if you're inside the window when an action occurs, typically when an action occurs. Inside title bar, same as this one. Inside window actions, so if you're inside the action area where the minimize, maximize, or close button is. Straightforward. Raise window to top, so it raises it to the top level of the scene tree, meaning it'll be on top of all the other windows, typically called whenever you click on the window. Set window action visibility, you can make it so the close button, maximize, or minimize, or all three are a certain visibility, so you can set it to true, false, whatever. Set window title, straightforward. Set window icon, again, straightforward. Toggle minimize, it's supposed to minimize the window. Currently it's experimental as it's not finished yet. Minimization needs to be worked on for the final product for what I'm working on. Maximize, similar to minimize, or no, this is the animation one. This is just maximizing. Set always on top, it'll set it to if it's always on top or not. And close window, pretty straightforward, closes the window. And then this is if these certain buttons are pressed and if the window size changes, which if it's maximized, it'll call the maximize animation. If it's snapped, it'll call the snap window animation. And if it's neither, it'll set the position and size to, or if it's greater than the, so the bottom left corner of the window is greater than the size X, meaning, for example, let me show you. If you, for example, open a window, and it's, say, off screen, and you resize it, it'll resize it, it'll move it to the side of the window, so then it always is on screen as much as it can be. And then there's another one where it will be pushed upwards, so around here. It just ensures that the window is on screen at all times, and only if it's not less than 0 on both of them. So that means if I do this, and then open it back up, I can still grab my window and do whatever I want with it. Let's take a look at the window itself. So for the window itself, it consists of a few different items. This is what the process info and states and all that stuff look like. This is a panel, it's what the main window is. The background color panel. The title bar, which is this entire area. It consists of the title bar background, the icon, the debug label, the title, and the Windows actions, which consist of those 3 buttons. The unfocused effect, which is if you're unfocused from the window, it'll not blur it, it'll color over it so it's not all up in your face. The content, which is where your window content would go. Unfocused effect, which is the blur, or not the blur, same effect as the title bar. The snap effect, which is the little blue effect that you saw. And the resize bars, which is what you're seeing these blue and red lines for. Those are the resize bars, and they get set to not visible so the window looks clean. That's the whole Windows system. I hope it's enjoyable and that people enjoy it. I can put a demo out if people want to mess around with it and see what it's like, but pretty straightforward. It's nothing too big per se, and it will get better over time. I will do my best to improve over it, and I hope you guys enjoyed watching this. I just kind of wanted to rant on about my cool discovery and what I figured out about on here. It's an accomplishment to get this done, so I'm just glad to be able to show it off, and I hope everyone enjoyed it as much as I did. See y'all later. Peace out.